You get out of the military and you feel isolated and alone. The rest of your team is going on doing their thing, and you're stuck there wondering what the team's doing and all this other kind of stuff. Like, you feel alone, you feel isolated, and I've never wanted anybody else to feel like I felt.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Trace of Burnout. I'm Dan.
I'm Roger.
And today, our guest is a man of many talents. Army veteran, Kurt Ballash.
Stay tuned.
Kurt, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
I appreciate you guys having me here.
Yeah, it's taken a little while, but we finally got you in studio.
Yeah, I think it's been a long-awaited thing. I've been waiting for it, which is really cool. I met you guys, I don't know, about a year ago or so, maybe a little bit over a year. Yeah. Told me about what you guys are doing. I've been watching the show every now and then when I can, and it's cool. I like your guys' discussions that you have.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, now you get to be a part of it, so the waiting is over. So we'll get started the way we always do. Does your family have a history of service?
My grandfather served during the Korean War. He was a cook, never seen combat or anything like that. And my father decided that he didn't want to continue the tradition, but I picked it up, decided that I needed to get away from where I was. It was the fastest escape to get away from home.
Just a bad situation? Or?
Just I wasn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
My friend circle they weren't really going anywhere. Nobody had really big ambitions, and I knew if I wanted to be more than what I was, I needed to get out of there.
Yeah. Where'd you grow up?
Cleveland, Ohio.
Okay.
Outskirts of Cleveland. Until I was about 13, I was actually into Cleveland, east side. And then my father moved us out to Paynesville, and then I jumped into Menor, so east side of Cleveland. It wasn't a bad area. Like, it wasn't bad upbringing. I was cared for. My parents cared for me. It just my friend group and where I was going with my decisions in life wasn't very good. Two felonies before you turn 18 don't add up to a good resume.
That's a good start.
Yeah. So, did those make, first, what were the felonies for?
So first story, this was probably the least offensive one. I had a friend that could get LSD, and I picked up a couple hits for me and some friends, and I gave it to them on the school bus, and there was an exchange in monetary value for what I paid for them. But the state of Ohio seen it as trafficking of substance, so I got charged with trafficking of LSD, which in the state of Ohio is considered very serious. It's an hallucinogenic, and if you can get caught with a certain amount of it, they can charge you with attempted manslaughter and all these things. So got a good attorney. I was doing good in school. I wasn't in a lot of trouble, so the courts kind of let me off easy. And then the next year I went back and I stood up to a bully on the school bus with a pocket knife, and that wasn't a very good thing. Got arrested for that, and then I spent time in juvenile detention. So when I say I needed to get out of there, it's because the decisions that I was making, not because so much the people. It just self-accountability is important.
The follies of youth, huh?
One of my favorite. There's two of them, at least two anyway. Internet videos are these 2-minute long videos that these guys are from Cleveland, and it's from the Cleveland Tourism Board, and they're singing about good times in Cleveland again. I don't know if you've ever seen them. And it goes through all the problems with Cleveland in this kind of sing-songy, and at the very, very end, they end with, but at least we're not Detroit. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, that's about right.
So you were living up to the Cleveland reputation.
I was.
My dad's from there, so I get it.
So did those felonies then make it difficult to join the military?
Yeah, it did and it didn't. I didn't get to go where I wanted to go. I wanted to go be a Navy SEAL. I don't know why, because I hate water. But
seemed like a good idea at the time.
Yeah, when I was young, I was like, I want to go be a SEAL. I heard that they're the badasses, and so I'm in juvenile detention and working out in my room and stuff like that when you're locked up between shifts and stuff, and just trying to get in shape to go be a SEAL. And then I go to try to be a SEAL, and they're like, yeah, you got a felony. We're not going to take you. So I was like, all right, well, I'll go to the Marines. And Marines
There
are
we
like,
go.
you got a felony. We're not going to take you. I was like, really? What? I walked into the Army recruiter's office. He goes, oh, yeah, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
Come
So
on down.
what kind of dregs of society? Oh, yeah, the Army. That's good.
Yeah.
Spoken from 2 Army veterans.
Yeah, they'll take anybody. The lowest GT score goes to the Army. Yeah, the recruitment process wasn't bad, but I walked in. I was like, I want to build bridges and blow shit up. And he's like, oh, I got a great job for you. You could be a combat engineer. And then I ended up walking through minefields for my first deployment. It was wonderful.
Yes.
I could have blown something up, but it wasn't what I wanted to blow up.
You were so close and yet so far, right?
What year was it that you came in?
2003 is when I joined.
And you were how old?
I turned 19 in basic training.
Okay. Okay. So you graduated and enlisted shortly thereafter.
Yeah, I took the summer off, and then I joined that following winter.
Yeah. Not uncommon. Yeah. I did the same thing. Well, I did the delayed entry. At the end.
I was showing up at the recruiting station and checking off the list so I can join as a PFC instead of a private, trying to make it so I can make some money before I was joining type of thing.
Yeah.
Do a little bit of promotion stuff and showing up for PT, and that was kind of always a joke. The recruiters never necessarily weren't known for being in shape, I guess.
Oh. So what month in 03?
January 03 is when I showed up for basic.
Right before Iraq popped off. That's why I asked.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, obviously we were marshalling and stuff at that point, but you didn't necessarily know when you stepped off in January 03 that we were about to go into it.
Not in Iraq, but I was expecting to go to Afghanistan.
Right.
But
I'm saying you're at basic training and they're like, oh, we just started a war in Iraq. That's new.
well, now I got twice the chance of going
Yes.
overseas. And I joined because I wanted to go. I wanted to be part of the fight. I didn't join because I was looking for a college payout like some of my peers did and not talking shit about them. They made the right decision for them. But I joined because I wanted to go overseas. I wanted to be part of the fight. I don't know why I joined as a combat engineer. It sounded as a great idea at the time.
Sounds cool.
Yeah, it sounds cool.
Did you just like look at the book and just pick something at random, or did they show you a cool video?
I was honest with my recruiter, and he said, "Here's a great job to get you in the military. like they're hurting for people right now. We can get you a waiver. That we can get you a waiver to get you in service. Just don't try to get a security clearance for a while." That's what he told me.
Yeah.
So then I get to basic training, and I'm doing really good in PT, and I get selected to go to be part of this K-9 detachment program. And part of the requirements is you got to get a security clearance. So right out of basic training, I'm putting in for my secret, and they're like, "So we noticed some things about your juvenile history," and that was a conversation too. But I found that as long as you're honest and you don't show it could be used to embarrass or blackmail you, most of the time they don't care. They just want to know that you're not trying to conceal from them.
Right.
So you went to basic training at Leonardwood?
Yeah, 1 station unit training.
Yep.
It was cold, and then sometimes it was warm.
Yeah.
That part of the country, yeah.
Leonardwood is an interesting place.
Yeah. Especially the surrounding town, like there was
St. Robert, right?
Yeah, St. Robert's and Rolla.
Was given your free-spiritedness,
Colorful background.
colorful background, was adjusting to military life challenging?
I think the excitement of being part of something and having direction and purpose provided for me was what I needed, because I got in the military, and although I wasn't like the Boy Scout of military guys, I didn't like polishing my boots. I didn't like having a starched uniform, but I did it, kind of instituted discipline. So at first, I think basic training was a little bit of a shell shock, but once I got to my unit, because we were kind of really small at the time, it was a little bit more relaxed. It wasn't like your typical military experience, showing up and there's formation every morning and all that kind of stuff. It's like, show up at the kennels and let's clean the dog's kennels. And it just wasn't like your typical first-time military experience.
Yeah.
I think some of the getting used to some of the, what do they call them, like traditions, like we do this because it's tradition, we're going to do this. That was, I think, harder than assimilating to the discipline side of things. Like, what is the purpose of this? Like, oh, it's tradition. Like,
We do it this way because we've always done it this way.
Yeah, we're not going to change. You should change. Okay, I'll try this.
Yeah.
Yeah, Leonard Wood was an interesting animal. I got out of one station unit training, got assigned there for the 67th Engineer Detachment, and then they later split up and did 3 different detachments for different dogs going to different areas. And we were the first engineer unit since, I guess, Vietnam that were training canines for demining operations.
Wow.
We went to England for 6 months and trained with the Royal Army Vet Corps. That was a really great experience, and drinking age was 18, so I was allowed to drink in England. That was cool.
The Brits,
Yeah,
those guys drink.
they drink, and I still keep in touch with a couple of them. Like, they're really good, like, loyal people. Like, when you become close to a couple of them. My buddy he's a photographer over there now. We called him Jungle back in the day because he used to fight like he was from the jungle, but smashed a few people's faces in together and played some rugby together. I will never play rugby with British guys again. They just, for some reason, when you're American, you got a target on your back, and
Aussies
feel
do
like
it.
hurting.
Yeah.
Well, the British have had a target on our back since the 1770s. I don't know if you know that.
Did something happen?
A time or two.
Yeah, dog stuff. It was fun.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because this was the first time since Vietnam
Yeah.
that they'd had dogs for mine detection, did they reflag like an old unit to bring it back and kind of keep that mine sniffing dog tradition going?
Again, you're asking question about tradition and lineage, and I wasn't really one of those people to study too much the history, but I want to say that there was some historical significance to why they chose the 67th Engineer Detachment out of Leonard Wood.
It's probably a safe assumption that they did.
Something might align. I know Jim Pettit was in charge of the overall program through the Maneuver Support Center.
Yeah.
We spent a lot of time going up there and meeting in his office before we went and that kind of stuff. I know it was a really big push from like big Army standpoint. It was a huge thing for them.
Yeah.
And the guy that trained me on how to train my dog actually ended up coming over and working for the Pentagon, leading up their canine program.
British guy?
Yeah. I can't remember his name anymore. Bunksy is what we used to call him. Then they put together a museum for us, and I don't know exactly where. My buddy Johnny Bosco was telling me about it. Really great friend of mine. Spent a lot of time together in England. Kind of took me underneath his wing when I first joined, so he was kind of like my military big brother. Recently reconnected with him. Just good friends were formed back then. Good people. He was from New York, Syracuse guy. Don't hold it against him though.
Dan loves upstate New York.
Yes. Great affinity. Both of my kids are up now. But how long were you in England?
I think we were over there for about 6 months or so in a little town called Melton Mowbray.
I imagine you had a fairly decent amount of free time, allowing you to do some travel.
I didn't take the opportunity to travel and go see things the way that I wish I would have now that I'm older. I did get to go see some of the other towns and bigger cities. I got to go to London. I got to go to Nottingham. I got to go to Leicester for a concert. I think is what the Leicester, L-E-I-C.
Probably Leicester.
Leicester or
Yeah,
something like that.
yeah.
Right. So I got to see a couple different places, but I definitely didn't travel as much as I would have. I would have loved to get up and go see Scotland, on a long weekend if we had it. But nope, I was just too busy partying up with the local townies and hanging out with the same old group of people. And
The soccer hooligans.
yeah, lots of them. There was 7 Americans over there. We were staying on the British compound with them, and they did a pretty good job kind of keeping it open and light for us, and not because they have a lot of really weird like traditions,
Yes.
and stuff. Like the lower enlisted don't eat with the NCOs, and the NCOs don't eat with the officers, and if you're lower enlisted, you eat beans and franks pretty much. Like it was different. So they did their best to kind of allow us to operate within our normal stuff without compromising theirs, but. I don't know. It was a fun time getting to learn a different culture, different military, different type of soldier. They were all either farriers or dog handlers. So again, it wasn't like I was getting to meet like the infantry of the British Army, like the guys that were out there fighting and doing all the other stuff. They were just putting shoes on horses and stuff there. They were fairies.
They were fairies.
Okay, so then after your time in England was done, you and your dog turned around and went back to Leonard Wood?
Yeah, we went back to Leonard Wood. I think I was stateside for about 3 to 6 months or so, and then we spun up and went to Afghanistan.
Did you know, like on your way back, or maybe even before you went to England, did you know that like you're going to train these dogs and you're going to Afghanistan?
Yeah, we were the only ones that had dogs like that, so they wanted to get us in theater fast.
Okay.
From the moment that I got selected in basic training for it, it was made very apparent that like you're going to get trained and you're going. Like there's no ambiguity here. We need you downrange. You're going to start clearing minefields and doing all kinds of fun stuff. But I knew I was ready. Like I said, like part of me really wanted to get over there and experience it. I think everybody should kind of experience some form of that kind of travel to somewhere that knows true poverty, knows true desperation.
Yeah.
It gives you like a true appreciation for what we have here.
Yeah, we've talked about it with several other people before. Yeah, just because you go for a 4-day vacation in Cabo doesn't mean that you know what life internationally is like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I went to Bangkok for a week. That's not knowing what the world is like.
Yeah. It's I wish everybody, I mean, I know not everybody's meant for front lines military, but I wish everybody was required to do some form of civil service and see that side of the world, because then people wouldn't be complaining about the dumbest things nowadays.
It is perspective. That's true.
Yeah. Like it just opens up your vision. Like this thing that I'm so focused on and upset about, it really doesn't mean anything. I still have a house. I still have all these great things. I'm blessed. And nowadays it's
Indoor plumbing.
Yeah, like I can flush my toilet and the turd goes by.
Yeah.
Air conditioning, ice cubes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ice cubes
Refrigeration.
are the true mark of civilization. It's true. I mean, civilization. Ice cubes.
So you were back for a few months before you hit Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
So that you were in for about a year, and you and your dog were in Afghanistan.
There was a little bit of delay from when I got to my unit to when the positions in England started opening up. I think there was like 6 months. So this might have been closer to 04, 05 I was in course. 05 I was in country. So this was a little bit over 2 years from the time that I entered service to the time that I was hitting ground in Afghanistan. I deployed in the middle of 2005 and I came home at the beginning of 2006, just in time for
We would have been there at the same time. Where were you in Afghanistan?
I was in Bagram for a little bit, and then from Bagram I went to Kandahar and assisted with the airfield expansion when they were getting ready to upgrade the runway there. And then from there I went down to Torkham, Highway 1, Pakistan, and I spent the rest of my time down there with ODA 141.
Mm-hmm. We were there at the same time.
What part?
I was in Task Force Devil, so we were in RC East.
Okay.
Cows, Pactia.
Mm-hmm. You were a little bit more north of me.
A little bit, yeah.
Again, I'm not super, like when it comes to, I wish I had the mind that I did now when I was back then, because I would have understood like the relation everywhere, but I was so fixed on
That's
where
not
I
how
was.
it works when you're a junior though, right?
Yeah, like I was brand new, my first deployment. I'm now with this brand new program handling canine assets to clear minefields, and it was just almost surreal. Like I don't remember a lot of it. I remember a lot of it, but I don't remember a lot of it. Like if you were to ask me what part of the country I was in, without telling me where the cities were, I'd be like, maybe over here. I was really bad at that level of geography, and I still, but I spent a little bit of time running around Afghanistan, and then I went back as a contractor, and I worked for Kabul Security there. It was fun.
Well, you can't fault yourself for the geography because we were all still using Soviet maps in 05 when I was there. So,
yeah. We didn't even have plates. I don't even think we had plates at the time. We had flak vests. That's what we were doing missions on.
Yes.
It was flak vests and no up armored vehicles. Everything was soft
if you had
skin.
Kevlar blankets on the floors.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was on my second tour at Afghanistan, and they were like, "Hey, so things are getting pretty bad. Take these Kevlar blankets and throw them down
them on the
over your open back Humvee.
Hey, but back then it was like fire superiority was your only deterrent to be in conflict, because we had a gun hanging off every door on those vehicles.
It was some Road Warrior stuff.
Yeah, it was like Mad Max gone wild. You got like a 50 cal up top. You got two 240s hanging off the backside. It was wild.
So when you went over there with your canine element, what's the size of that? How many guys? How many dogs?
We deployed in 7-man teams. We had a 28-man company operationally, and we had a couple command elements, logistic control people, and worked headquarters. But I want to say we were around 28 people strong. We worked in 7-man deployment teams.
With a canine for each person?
Yeah. We each had our own animal. I was actually the second dog handler to hit country. So the program in canine handling that I went through was slightly longer than the other canine program that was doing they were SSD dogs, we were MWD dogs. So there was like search and seizure type dogs that would pick up on scent cones a little bit differently. Mm-hmm. And then we had on lead and off lead, like demining operations. So they were trained slightly different, but their program was a little faster. So they got on country, and then I got back from England, and it was like 4 to 6 months, maybe 4 months or something like that. And then we were spinning up, and we had to go through, JRC's CONUS Replacement Center down in Benning, because we didn't even have like the type of support that we needed to deploy out of Leonard Wood. That's where I got introduced to the travel card and the infinite amount of ways that you can mess up with a travel card, and that was bad. That was a bad learning experience. My squad leader had to bail me out of.
I learned that lesson the hard way as a young soldier also, and I didn't have anybody to bail me out.
Yeah. And that'll ruin your credit too. And next thing you know, anyway, back on topic. Rabbit hole. We were talking about
when you got in country.
Yeah.
How long was it before you and your canine actually went out and did what you were trained to do?
About a week.
Oh wow.
That's pretty quick.
Yeah, it was about a week, but we were mainly in Bagram. We were going inside the wire areas at the time, and we were clearing things inside our compound, and like Charlie keyhole, or the keyholes in the middle of the airway that were never demined.
Yeah.
Or when they needed to push the fence out a little bit, we would go out and demine a couple quadrants a day or whatever it was. So we got going pretty soon. As long as our dogs would certify that day, we would wake up and we would certify our dogs. If they picked up on scent that day, then we're cool. If they didn't, dogs are like people. Some days they just aren't with it. You notice it. You can pick it up in their behavior. He's not scenting appropriately. He doesn't sit in the right location, all that kind of stuff. If he doesn't pass morning certs, we didn't have to work that day. We were support roles. We'd sit there and do the logs while the other people were out in the minefields and make sure that everything was documented. But usually we were going into the areas that they would go and do all the flailing on. So it was like, why are we even doing this? Like, you've already flailed it. So it was just dumb stuff. It seemed almost like it was busy work, like confirmation busy work type of stuff.
Did you ever find anything?
When we were doing the airfield expansion in Kandahar, you can see them, Pomsies and rotted out stakes hanging in the wire, the old sea wire from the Russians and stuff like that. So, yeah, I found a lot of things, but I've never been, I would call proximity to it. My dog would pick up on it, and I'd mark it with a flag and pull my dog out, and we'd log it and wait for EOD or someone to come
waiting on
it.
EOD.
How close do you get to? If your dog is on leash,
10-meter lead.
10-meter lead? Okay.
So we would train them during our course of training. We train them to go out and back in a perfectly straight line, and then you can learn how to guide your dog with the leash a little bit if he starts veering. But 10 meters, sometimes you would indicate, you would tell him seek away, and he would put his nose down, and it would be like right there, like, oh, like there's something there.
Yeah.
And then we were clearing Charlie Keyhole. I don't know if any of you guys remember, but one time there was a C-130 landing. Maybe it was a C-5. I can't remember. It was one of the smaller ones. Tire popped. ran off the runway in Bagram into the Charlie keyhole, and me and my dog got to put an extraction lane in so the aircrew could get off the runway. My squad leader got a bronze star with a V device at the time, and the commander of the unit that we were assigned to, even though I was the one that cleared the entire lane, said that I was too low ranking to get a V device with me.
Yes, because when the award structure was implemented, every award had a rank attached to it, apparently.
Yeah. It's wild. That's when I kind of learned. I was like, well, all right, well, I don't care about awards anymore. It's just a bunch of paper pushing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was about a week, and we were already starting to clear minefields, and got introduced to the way that like it would rain in Afghanistan, and that sooty top layer would get
The moon dust.
and soft, and you'd step in it and you'd disappear down to your mid thigh, and you'd pull your shoe up, but your shoe wasn't there.
Yeah.
I need a new pair of boots.
Yeah.
And back then they thought boots were going to save you if you stepped on a mine. They had like these really thick, like rubber soled boots. They must have been 6 inches or so, and they had a big V in the bottom of them just made out of rubber. That's going to stop an explosion. It was funny, some of the stuff that we seen, like being on the demining side.
Was that equipment just like, hey, we're going to test this, we're going to try this? Or this was, hey, this is already past all of our stuff?
You've already put more thought into it than they did.
Yeah, they're like, we're just going to give them shoes. They have V's kind of like our MRAPs. We're going to put V's on the bottom of our shoes.
What could go wrong?
I don't know, man. I worked with some Swedes and Norwegians and Danes when I was in the Balkans, and I watched them clear minefields. They didn't have any little V's on their shoes. That's for sure.
Yeah. I learned how to do it with the mine detector and all that stuff in basic training, and I never seen it again. So I don't know. We were the new demining technology, I guess. We're just going to use these dog sniffers. Funny enough, they would pick up on 0.1 grams of TNT buried up under 10, almost under 10 inches in the ground.
That's wild.
With 99% accuracy.
Wow. What breed of dogs?
I had a black lab. Other people had Malinois. Some people had German Shepherds. I think we had one Springer Spaniel in the group. So it just depended on whatever dog accepted the training.
So there's not really like one breed that's necessarily better for it than other. It's just dog A did better than dog B.
You might be asking the wrong person. I am not that level of trainer. I was
from
trained
your experience.
No, from my experience, I noticed that the English were training a variety of breeds for different types of purposes. Obviously, all of their protection-based dogs were German Shepherds and Malinois. You're not going to get a black lab to be aggressive, not in that way, at least. But they could train. We had black labs, we had yellow labs in the program, we had Springer Spaniels, Belgian Malinois, and German Shepherds, from my memory.
Okay.
They might have had some other breeds after I left.
Did they have any Chihuahuas?
No Chihuahuas.
No Chihuahuas.
They didn't invite Satan into the building.
They did. I don't know if I would want a dog that always has the shakes on my demining team. So
Yeah, that's true.
Might vibrate the soil and
Just
cause
saying.
something to go off.
And just nothing good will come from this, is
No.
all I'm saying.
So you, on that tour, you bounced around the country
I did.
to different locations, but you were doing the same thing pretty much everywhere?
It was about
I
half.
guess, like base expansion kind of.
Yeah, for the first
activities.
half of the deployment, that was what it was like. And then we somehow got linked up with the SF guys on Bagram, and they were like, hey, we can use these dogs on the border. And me and my squad leader got assigned down to the ODA, and it was supposed to be like a rotation thing where eventually everybody from the dog detachment would get opportunity to go do that. But once we got on ground and the team started working with us, they're like, we're not going to switch you guys out. We just trained you up on how
Yeah.
we need you to move and
Right.
everything with
Right,
us.
right.
So we spent the second half of the deployment 4 months. We only did 8 months in theater. I spent the second half of that deployment down at Torcom, hitting golf balls off HESCO barriers at Jingle Trucks. And 21st birthday was in Afghanistan. Team sergeant, team leader came out, relieved me of security, poured me a glass of scotch. Was my introduction to Blue Label Scotch. We sat there, we shot the shit for the rest of the night. I was like, go to bed. I had a sip of that, and I just started talking to him, and it's like, man, this is what I want to do. I want to go be part of these guys. I want to go be SF. I want to go do this. So I left the dog, got back from that deployment, and I started training up for selection, doing long ruck marches, breaking in my boots, and getting ready to go. And January '06, I think it was, I went, and I was a first-time select.
When did you get back from Afghanistan?
2005-ish. To the January, February, March, maybe March or April 2005.
But you spent about a year training up for special forces.
Yeah, it
for
was
selection anyway.
I don't know if I started training right away, but yeah, it was. I kind of came back from that deployment. I had my mind set on going. I took leave to go drive to Campbell, Kentucky to attend one of the briefings, and then I came back from that, and that's when I really started training. They had that little manual that they gave you, ruck this many miles in a day, and I don't know. When I say training, like I was in fairly decent cardiovascular condition. I wasn't a really strong runner because my height, my stature, like I'm only 5'6". I'm not going to keep up with a 6-foot runner. But overall, I was in good shape, and I had heard a lot of people say, just don't quit, just don't quit, just don't quit. It's all about seeing whether or not you're going to quit. So I went there with that mentality. I think I did one long ruck march of about 20 miles before going, just to make sure that I wouldn't have an issue with my boots.
What rank were you when you went to selection?
Sergeant.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you made E5 relatively quickly.
5 and 3.
Yeah.
Being in a small unit, when I was at Leonard Wood, before I went to selection, I was going to the Soldier of the Quarter board, and then I went to Post Soldier of the Quarter and Post Soldier of the Year, and I was studying all the board questions and performing in physical fitness and all that kind of stuff, and so I got promoted quick. My promotion board was actually my Soldier of the Quarter board. I walked in and the sergeant major asked me to recite the creed and told me to get out. That was my promotion board because I was nailing boards. I was going to all these different boards for the post and all this other kind of stuff. And like, this guy,
not bad for a twice felon.
Yeah, not bad for a twice felon. That goes back to like when I tell people, when I'm talking to young kids and like, well, I got in trouble. There's no hope for me. I'm in the system. Like, bullshit, man. You're never lost as long as you show remorse, as long as you pick up and you correct action and you go forward with intention and purpose. Like, people are going to give you another shot. They're going to look at that exactly what it is, a mistake.
Responsibility and accountability.
Yeah. Self accountability. Yeah. Don't lie. If nothing else, don't lie to oneself.
Yeah.
I've been doing a lot of reading lately. But yeah, got the bug for selection. Got first time selected. Went on to the Q course. Made it almost all the way through. I said the wrong thing to the wrong person at the wrong time, made an enemy within the cadre, and then when they had a technical reason to release me from the course, they did. Made it almost all the way through the medical pipeline, almost had my SFMS completed SOCM, so luckily it was enough of the pipeline completed that I can get assigned to USASOC elements, which was cool. I didn't go back to big Army. Got a decent reenlistment bonus going to the Whiskey 1 from a 12 Bravo at the time, 12 or 21. It went back and forth a couple times.
Tell everybody what SOCM is.
Special Operations Combat Medic Course. It is the first 6 months of the SFMS, which is Special Forces Medical Sergeant School, which is about 11 or 12 months, depending on when you went through the pipeline. And that SOCM course is what gives you that Whiskey 1 identifier. So even though I never went through basic training as a medic, because I completed that Whiskey 1 identifier, the military allowed me to reclass to a 68 Whiskey 1, which is medic, and then Special Operation Combat Medic was the Whiskey 1 identifier.
And you wanted to do that? Or was that just like the best option available after?
I wanted to be a medic for Special Forces. I heard it was the hardest. And if I was the type of person that if I'm going to take something on, I wanted to make sure that I was... I put myself through the hardest part of it. Looking in hindsight, if I had taken the natural tendency to go engineer, I probably would have gotten my long tab because I wouldn't have been in the course for so long, and I wouldn't have got, maybe burned out or whatever it was that kind of got my attitude all chipped up and made me say the things that I said to the person that I talked about. And but everything works out for a reason. If I would have completed training and went on to group, I probably wouldn't have had the 13 years with my wife that I had. So it was worth it. At the time, I was frustrated. I was upset. I was angry. I held on to a resentment inside for a while. But after I lost her, it was like, all right, that was worth it.
So after you completed the medical training,
mm-hmm.
where were you off to?
Civil affairs. I went to spend USAID money in other countries.
That's right. We call that OPM, other people's money.
Yeah, I definitely spent a lot of other people's money doing medical operations in Iraq. I went to 96 civil affairs. I was assigned to Charlie Company. I was just still keep in touch with a lot of my civil affairs guys. They come by the shop.
So that's a CENTCOM oriented CA battalion.
Yeah. All Middle East. I never got to see anywhere else in the world. Middle East. Every deployment, every chance I got to travel, I got to see England for 6 months, and then it was Middle East every time. Even when I was contracting, it was Middle East. That's the only thing you could do.
What was your operational language?
I was when I was going through the pipeline, I was assigned to Tagalog, which is Filipino.
Oh.
I don't remember any of it at this point.
That means yes.
Pwede bang man banyo. I know how to say where's the bathroom.
That would be the
Yeah.
toity.
But I don't remember very much of it. I think at one point I tested out at like a 1-1, so I was never very proficient. But I was good enough to pass language portion.
Just good enough.
Just good enough.
So you did that. I'm a little confused. So you did Tagalog during your SFQ course. So you would have
I would have
probably gone to first group.
Yeah. Went and hung out with the first group guys that I was supporting in Afghanistan.
Right, but instead things change, and then they send you the 96.
Yeah, no language for it, no nothing, just...
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think they just...
Things are different now, yeah.
Yeah, they needed bodies in civil affairs at the time. They were promoting people up really fast because they were trying to stand up the extra battalion. There was a lot of things changing in civil affairs that I really didn't understand at the time. And they needed medics to fill out teams, especially Charlie Company medics, because they were the next up on the rotation and they had no positions filled. So I just basically got dropped into the bucket. Didn't even know where I was going. Didn't have a language assignment. Couldn't understand a thing that was said downrange. But
well, the 97th would have been stood up right around the time you would have been showing up.
Probably.
Yeah, close. Yeah,
I think that sounds about right.
Yeah. Because the 96 was the only game in town on the active side for a while.
And then I think they stood up like the 80-something or 84th. Or
yeah, the 85th comes
way later. That
about
was
4 years later. Yeah.
Yeah. Right about the time that I was in Iraq again, that's when I think they were doing the Texas National Guard.
I got stories.
Yeah. But I got there and I made really good impression with my team, and things were going well, and went to Qatar to be hubbed out of, to go into other operational theaters in the area with civil affairs to try to support whatever mission that they were doing. And I made a dumb mistake. I got in trouble for steroids at the time, going out in town in Qatar. And the guy that I was with on the first day, me and him got our stuff back to our room just fine. And then we went out the next day with this other guy, and we went to a hotel, had a drink with one of these girls that he knew that ran the hotel, and then we were on the way back, and he goes to pick up his stuff, and he puts it in the center console of the vehicle as we're coming back through the gate, and the vehicle gets searched anytime you're coming through the gate when you're in a foreign country, in case people don't know, and they found his stuff that he had purchased. So even though it wasn't my stuff, I was with him, so they gave him authorization to search my room. And at that time, they had found all my stuff. I hadn't even got a chance to start taking this stuff yet. Like, I had it one day. I think I took one of these little tablets that I got, and I was like, all right, cool, I'm going to get really focused in the gym. They're not sending me in country for a little bit. I was volunteering at the clinic there just to kind of fill my days, just to do something, so I wasn't just sitting around. And I was going to get jacked. And nope, I ended up catching a plane ride home very shortly after that. So I got assigned to Alpha Company after that. They gave me a second try. Again, they needed medics. They were desperate. And Alpha Company wasn't bad. I had really good people working around me. My mouth got me in trouble with my first sergeant. I think I said something that he didn't like at the time. And when they found a reason, they kicked me out of USASOC. I grabbed the wrong hoodie and went to the gym, and I got kicked out of USASOC for a uniform infraction.
That's got to be a first.
That was my, and I got not only kicked out of USASOC, but I got blacklisted.
Yeah. PNG.
I got blacklisted.
Persona non grata.
I reached out. I was downrange with the 82nd because I got sent to the 82nd after that. My soul just started like decaying from the inside, going from special
That's
operations.
America's Guard of Honor. How dare you?
You say whatever you want about that military unit. I did not have a good experience there. I came from small military USASOC to big conventional army, and from the moment I showed up, my qualifications with the Whiskey One identifier put a target on my back.
How so?
My first line supervisor when I got there, I have a kid at this time, mind you, from my first marriage. I am required to have a domicile for my kid when she comes visit. He tried getting my BAH taken away from me and getting me moved back into the barracks. I don't even know why. This is just, I had to go fill out extra paperwork to prove that I had a kid at S1 because someone put in paperwork to withdraw my BAH. It's like, this is my first experience in the 82nd.
Shoes and deers, right?
Yeah. It doesn't, I don't know how he even started the process.
Yeah.
I don't know enough about paperwork and logistics and S1 stuff, but he was there. He was a career E5. Later on, we became really good friends after he got out of the military. I kind of understood why he was a little bit upset and disgruntled and what had happened in his career. But at the time, we were really bumping heads. I walked into the PA's office. This is the first week that I'm there. And he goes, "We don't need your Boy Scout kind here. You're going to follow my protocol." It's like, I understand, making sure that you assert some type of, this is my clinic still. Make sure you're following procedures that I've set forth in my clinic. But the way that he did it really felt like it's more of an assertion of dominance rather than, I'm trying to take care of
professionalism.
Yeah, there was none.
It's like prison rules, yeah.
Yeah, and the section sergeant over there he had the memory of an elephant and he would carry grudges. And I don't know what it was about me. Maybe it was my kind of nonchalant attitude when I walked into his office the first time that really rubbed him the wrong way. I would slip up and call people by their first name, people underneath me, "Hey, John, go grab that stuff." This isn't a position where I need to tell you, "Specialist so-and-so, go get this for me." Go to parade rest. It's, "Hey, John, go grab that for me." Why does this need to be well, that's not how we address our junior soldiers.
No.
It's I get that. There's a certain time when that discipline is needed. But if we're just working together in a motor pool to accomplish a task, why does it need to be so formal? And I think that's one of the things that really rubbed everybody the wrong way there, and I just didn't fit in. So fast forward a couple years, and I wanted to go to another unit, and part of me going there required that I got my promotable status.
Because you're still an E5 at this
I'm
point.
still an E5. I just earned my E5 back. I went to my promotion board in Iraq with the 82nd, and they had me disassemble my firearm without looking at it, recite the NCO creed, and then they asked me about why I got demoted. And he goes, "Well, if that was me, you would have been out of the military." I was like, "Understood, Sergeant Major." He goes, "I'm going to recommend you for promotion." And I got my promotable status. So it was kind of weird.
Okay.
Thanks, I think. Backhanded slap while you send me out the door. But hey, at least I got my So yes, I got my rank back, but where I wanted to go required that I would get promotable for 6 because they didn't have any slots, MTO slots for 5s. I went to my section sergeant and I approached him in the most professional manner. I said, "Listen, I don't fit in here. I got excessive training beyond what is needed here at this unit. I'm rotting away in a clinic. Let me go do good things for the military. Send me to the board. Let me get promoted. Let me get my P status. Let me get out of here." And he looked at me and goes, "As long as I'm here, you're never going to get promoted. As long as I'm in 82nd, you'll never get promoted. Just understand that. You're stuck." I was like, really? This is the type of people that I'm running into in conventional Army. And part of it was my attitude. I recognize and self-accountability side of that. I just couldn't assimilate to the way that they did things, and that rubbed them the wrong way. So I get it. But at the same time, why intentionally ruin somebody's career? Because jealousy, maybe? None of them had a Whiskey One identifier. Maybe they were a little bit threatened that if I got promoted, now I'm outside of their control. I get into the different promotion systems. I no longer need to go to the board. I'm going in front of Congress for promotion. So non-centralized, I think, is what it was. I think part of them worried a little bit about that. Because the other guy that was in a very similar situation from me, I don't know if any of you remember him, he got in trouble for doing a pull-up off a bridge while he was in civil affairs. It was a huge incident, and he got kicked out of civil affairs for that. And then his team sergeant fought for him and got him brought back. But while he was in 82nd, he excelled because he was a little bit...
He played ball?
He played ball.
Yeah.
And I couldn't play ball. Swim against stream all my life. That's how I've done it. Like, why am I going to make progress in life? I'm just going to go nowhere and work really hard.
Well, none of us are shrinks here, but let's explore that just a little bit. I mean, why do you think you're that way?
I had people look at me when I got in trouble in high school, and they told me that I was going to go nowhere with my life.
Yeah.
And when somebody tells me that I'm going to be a nobody or nothing, I'm going to prove you wrong. Someone tells me to do something, like I naturally want to fight against it. I don't know. It's just my natural inclination. A little bit of chaos in the mix. If you believe something, I like to maybe not necessarily be like contentious, but devil's advocate, test your beliefs a little bit. Do you really believe this, or are you just regurgitating pre-digested thoughts that you heard from somebody else? It's my way of getting to know people, but people think it is really abrasive personality.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just always like a challenge. I don't like the easy way.
And these leaders that you had in the 82nd were pretty much telling you that you were going to be a nobody, and they were going to make sure you were a nobody all over again.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, I ended up... I tried everything to get out of there. I knew what was happening there. I was getting depressed. I was starting to drink really bad. I felt like I was dying there. So I go to the sergeant major of the time of placement of WOMAC, and I interviewed with him, and I explained to him where I was with my life. I explained I didn't want to jump out of airplanes anymore with the 82nd because I have kids, and I wanted to be there for their entire life. I didn't want to have a spiral fracture of my femur. Right? Let me come here. Let me get some time at WOMAC so I can submit my application to the IPAP program, because I only had field medicine. At the time, it was really competitive to get into the IPAP. They wanted both tactical and clinical medicine to show that you were potentially able to complete the course.
Real quick, what is the IPAP program?
Inter-Service Physician Assistant Program.
Okay.
I enjoyed medicine. I really enjoyed sports medicine and kinesiology and study of the human body. And I wanted to go be a physician assistant in sports medicine or occupational therapy. And this was the bridge. This was my way of creating a future for myself. Mm-hmm. I got accepted. I got a pinpoint paragraph and line number assignment to WOMAC. I went to re-enlist, got that in my contract. The moment I signed that contract, the battalion sergeant major called me up to his office and said that they put up a fence on medics, which meant that they were hurting on medics and that he was blocking my pinpoint assignment to WOMAC.
I didn't even know they could do that.
Yeah. I didn't know either. That was blindsided me. I was like, I had my way out of here, and it was ripped out from underneath me. So I was like, oh yeah, you want to play this game with me? I went downstairs at S1, I pulled back my airborne status. Like, you guys aren't going to keep me here. They're like, oh, now you're a lag in a jump unit? We're going to put you on every detail. So I was on almost every ammo guard. I was on almost every extra detail, on duty all the time. And they started to make my life really complex. I had a new daughter, and my wife was required to travel. And this is how I got out of the military.
Real quick, before we move on to that, did you, when they fenced you in, did you go and talk to the sergeant major at WOMAC that you interviewed with and see if maybe there was something that he could do?
I did not. I think at that time, in that moment, because I felt like retention, my platoon sergeant and the sergeant major of my company, my battalion, like they had all orchestrated this against me. I don't know if that's the reality, but that's the way I felt in that moment. And I don't know. I guess part of me is inside recognize that if the military is willing to do this to their soldiers and break promises, do they really care about your life? And can I trust them to take that into consideration when I'm downrange with the next team? So I think in my mind when that happened, I had made my decision. I'm getting out of the military one way or another. I want nothing to do with this anymore. I had experienced a lot of people that intentionally went out of their way to make my career go backwards. When I wasn't a bad soldier, I just maybe didn't understand the intent of the mission for the units I was working in at the time. Or instead of having somebody be able to rein me in my mouth a little bit to teach me, like, this is how you got to kind of play ball, I had weak leaders that were more yes men, like some of the guys that were on my civil affairs teams. And I say that like they were good leaders. They watched out. We came home safe for our deployments. But like when stupid stuff would come up, that was just, they were really quick to agree with the dumb things. Versus me, I was very quick to voice how this is dumb. And that wasn't very welcome. So I did a good job making my own enemies, but I didn't have maybe the guidance from somebody that had been through kind of where I was at to kind of help me through that, like kind of directionalize some of my energy maybe. But again, it's all my fault, self-accountability.
Well, we will get further into the grand conspiracy against you. But first, let's take a break.
Okay.
So we left off about to unravel a grand conspiracy.
The grand conspiracy against Kurt Ballash. I think I was basically just saying, like, I had made the decision at that point, instead of trying to like go back to the Sergeant Major of Womack and fight it or see if there was, I just kind of got it in my head. I was like, I'm ready to get out of here. I ended up getting discharged from the military underneath a Chapter 5-8, which is convenience of the military. My wife was doing a lot of traveling with her business that she was working for, and I was required to watch my daughter on the weekends.
This is you had gotten remarried.
Yeah, this is my wife of 13 years, Jamie.
And you had gotten, when during your career had you gotten remarried? It
was while I was in civil affairs.
Okay, so
I started dating her. I met her while I was a personal trainer in the Q Corps. We were dating during that time, and then we actually got married shortly after I got to the 82nd. So we were dating for about 3.5 years.
So she was with you as you were going up and down this roller coaster.
She was there with me every step of the way.
So was she a soldier?
She was not.
Okay.
She was from Bunn, North Carolina. Does anybody know where Bunn?
Not to be confused with Bun Level?
Not to be confused with Bunn Level or Dunn, but Bunn. Where's Bunn? Do you know where Knightdale is?
Yeah,
I know where
east of Raleigh.
Lewisburg?
Yeah.
It's north of Raleigh a little bit. That's where she was from, Lewisburg.
Bunn.
She went to Bunn High School.
Is it one of those towns where every time a baby's born, they actually manually go out there and flip the population sign?
I think when she was growing up, she was describing that the town was that small, but they did recently get a shopping center there.
Ooh. They have a stoplight now, too.
Yeah, they got a stoplight. They got a little bit more than a gas station in high school now. But yeah, she was there with me, and she helped pick up all the pieces every time I kind of fell apart. Like, if it wasn't for that woman, I would hate to imagine the way that those falls, that betrayal, that distrust, all of that stuff would have affected me, knowing the type of person that I have a tendency to be.
It's a good woman.
She was a very good woman. She brought out the best in me, and that's part of the reason why I hold on to it so much now. Yeah. I'm really careful about letting other people take my piece and who I am, because she helped bring that out, and I like who that is. Yeah. But she was working, and they told me I had to get a family care plan, someone to take care of my kid, so I could be out at the field problems and do all this stuff with the 82nd. And I looked at it, I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm not turning my kid over to somebody else, knowing that the end trajectory of this was me getting out of the military. I knew what was going to happen. Yeah. I was pushing for it. I was going to do it in a way that was going to get me a severance pay on the way out. Because when you get 5-8 military chapter, Because it's convenience in the military, they have to buy out the rest of your contract or just give you a severance payment. So I got like $18,000 on the way out the door. I got 6 months of benefits I can still go on post and shop and all that other kind of stuff. And MWR, I got a little blue card for 6 months, I think is what it was.
This is before they changed the IDs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were doing a field problem, and they're like, well, you're going to come out during the days when your wife is able, when you have childcare, and then we'll send you home at night and you can watch your kid. And I was like, okay, that's fine. We'll play your game for a little bit. And I was out there in the field with them, and the first sergeant called me over with my platoon sergeant, and they basically looked at me and said, you know that if you don't get a family care plan, you're going to get kicked out of the military.
Right.
And I kind of just calmly responded, not in a disrespectful tone. I said, I can't trust you guys with re-enlistment promises. How am I going to trust you guys overseas with my life? And the first sergeant looked at my section sergeant, and they looked at me, and he's just like, you're dismissed. Like, what are you going to say to that? He knew what happened. He didn't stand up and make sure that it was righted in front of the sergeant major. They all hung me out to dry. And when he seen like that defeat in me, he knew he wasn't going to win. I was getting out of the military one way or another. Fortunately, it didn't affect my service at all. I got an honorable discharge. They tried to downgrade me to other than honorable discharge. I had to go to IG to fight that because my BC decided he wanted to try to downgrade my discharge categorization. What? These are the leaders that I had in the 82nd. This is why, like, when people bring up the 82nd and All-American Week and stuff like this, it's like, yeah, they're just a bunch of turds too. Like, there are bad leaders everywhere, and unfortunately, my time in the 82nd, I had a really bad run of them. I had a lot of buddies that had really great command culture from the people during the surge in different parts of the 82nd, and they loved it. And I just happened to get a bad luck of the draw. I got a series of bad leaders, and it really affected the way that I see that.
What year was it that you were discharged?
2013. I got out 10 years and 1 month the day.
So the Army had not officially announced that they had gotten rid of all the toxic leaders. Not yet.
There's the wind up.
That was still a few years away then.
Did they though?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing that really happened.
It happened years after George Bush stood on the aircraft carrier that said mission accomplished.
Yeah.
I'll say about the 82nd, the best and worst leaders I ever had in my time in the Army were in the 82nd.
I can see that.
USASOC was kind of a really great, on the bell curve, USASOC was like right in the middle. Like I had pretty good
decent leaders all around.
That left and right end of that bell curve, best and worst.
I can see that. You get a lot of population there in conventional Army, and sometimes the turds make it there. Sometimes they polish themselves just
with
right.
With all due respect.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
You got to preface it. Yeah.
I said with all due respect.
That doesn't mean you could just say anything you want to me.
That's what Specialist so-and-so told me. So when you finally got you went on your terminal leave or whatever it was on your way out the door, I imagine that there was a pretty big sense of relief. That not necessarily that you were getting out, but that it was over.
There was. That brought on its own level of complications as I adjusted to be and reintegrating into civilian life. But what stayed with me was that resentment and anger at the people that I felt betrayed me. And it took me a really long time to let that go. I carried that for years before I realized how bad it was killing me on the inside. I had looked at all of these guys that, from my career, going back to USASOC and going back to the Q course and making the wrong comment to the wrong person and them using that to ruin my career, going to USASOC and wearing the wrong hoodie to the gym and getting kicked out and blacklisted, to now being in the 82nd and people there telling me that I'm never going to, like, it was all those layers of betrayal by people that I literally would have fought and died next to. And this is the way that I was being treated by my supposed, like, seniors, these guys that I was supposed to trust with my health and safety when I'm overseas.
Well, I mean, yeah, absolutely that. Your life and your subordinates' lives come first and foremost. But as an NCO, these are also the people that are responsible for your mentorship and development.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be showing you the right way to do things.
Nobody career counseled me and taught me how to get in touch with branch to target promotions or target positions to set myself up for, being a sergeant major one day. Nobody sat down throughout my entire career and explained that to me.
Well, you were in during that time of the double GWAT, where it was just churn. All of us were, but it was churn. It was train, deploy, train, deploy, train, deploy. And there wasn't necessarily time for professional development if you were in a unit that didn't prioritize that.
Yeah, I can see that. And I do understand that level of it, because a lot of people in my career field were still getting promoted.
Right.
They were still making sergeant major. So it wasn't like they had all stopped.
No.
It just, if you were around and you stuck around long enough, you got promoted. And that's the way it kind of seemed.
Yeah, I mean, that's...
as long as you didn't do anything egregious,
Yeah.
Put a really bad black stain on your record, you were going to...
Or wear the wrong hoodie.
Yeah, obviously, don't wear the wrong hoodie. And that hoodie, I don't even know. It was inside out. I threw it in my gym bag, went to the gym, got out of the gym, and we had a special boat team attached to our element, and we would go down and hang out and play like Black Ops, and they would make homemade wine. And we would drink homemade wine. And
this isn't like prison toilet wine, is it?
No, it's a little bit better, just marginally.
It's the Navy now. Come on.
It is the Navy, just understand. But at least it was like almost the men's department of the Navy. Like they're almost the men's department. And on the way after I got there, I put on. We were going to the chow hall and being like, man, I'm cold. And we got in the Cut V and I threw on my hoodie. Didn't even realize that it had my Cleveland stuff on the back. I thought it was just our black hoodie that we had from the unit. And I walk in the chow hall and lo and behold, who's in there? The guy that just told us not to wear inappropriate PT attire. And he's seen me. He said a comment to me and he goes, well, nice hoodie. I was like, Went back to the camp. I stuck around the special boat team until probably midnight or 1 o'clock that night, knowing that as soon as I got back, I was going to be screwed.
I'll say this, because this episode's about you, not me. Me making a salty commentary on the brigade's PT uniforms changed my career forever, too.
What's funny is the guy that got me kicked out of USASOC and blacklisted later got in trouble for a uniform infraction while here in the States.
Well, that's how that works, right?
I was like, yes, karma. Later on, one of my buddies that I was actually pretty good friends with wanted to bring this individual by my shop. I said, that's not a good idea. Don't bring him here. You just leave him over there. He goes, he'd love to see you. I was like, I don't want to see him.
Yeah.
So changed my life forever as well. So
it's weird stuff that'll ruin you, man. It's like the dumbest things. Like of all things you could have got me for, it was like a uniform and friend. That's what you gave me on.
Well, again, keeping it a little bit cryptic, but that at the time when I got disciplined for that really silly, ridiculous event, I thought it was the end of my career. It turns out it couldn't have been better for my career. But yeah,
you said that you carried around that anger and resentment for years afterward.
Yeah.
What helped you, I don't know, let it, not maybe let it go is the best way to put it, or
forgive.
Forgive, sure.
Here we go. God.
Yeah.
God, 100%. My wife, because of that anger, that resentment, losing sense of purpose, wanting to feel that adrenal response, I was not a good husband for a period of time. I was not a good father for a period of time. As my wife and I started healing through this, we started going to church together. And I would make her show up late to church because I didn't want to hear the singing. But we would show up to church. She started going, okay, that's fine. I think it was about a year after I started going to church. I was sitting there in the chairs, and I don't know, just forgiveness came to heart, and I had my come to Jesus moment. I had never been a religious person my entire life, scientifically minded, not necessarily atheist, but I would maybe more align myself with agnostic, not sure what the right answer was. very science oriented, wanted to understand and physically touch and have evidence of things. And I had evidence of God inside me. And it was a moment that I forgave myself for what I did to my wife and my kids. And I forgave all those people that hurt me in that same day. It was the first time that I cried in public. It was the first time that I got down on my knees and I prayed. And it was an absolutely transformative experience for me. God, it's the only thing that I think could have done that for me, because I was still, even at that time, I was holding on to those voices from my childhood that were telling me you'll never be anything.
Yeah.
All those people that were telling me that I was going to be a nobody. Yeah. And it all disappeared. It all vanished. And that is the moment that I started feeling lighter. That's the moment where I felt like I truly let go of the military hurt. And I was able to step into being the person that I am today, and transforming myself in who I am. And that took a lot of work. And I messed up a lot, and it took a lot of forgiveness from my wife. And if it wasn't for her, I probably would have got lost in my demons, like a lot of us do.
What year was this when you had your come to Jesus?
This was about 2015, 2016 in there.
So you'd been out for
about 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, a couple of years, yeah.
Yeah, this was about the same time that I was contracting. I was doing embassy security as a security medic over there.
Yeah.
I was ranked top 10 in the nation powerlifting for my weight class and division. I was a fairly well-respected medic on contract, and the injuries started adding up, and I became a combat liability instead of a combat multiplier.
No.
And that was a really hard realization for me. So all this is coming to a headway at the same time. I'm losing sense of identity. The injuries take away my powerlifting career, takes away my tactical medic career, the thing that's providing for my family. I'm dealing with all this guilt of things that I've done in my life. I'm dealing with all this pain and resentment and anger at the people that I feel have done me wrong. And it was like everything came to a headway. And when I felt like I was about to break, I was broken, but I was broken by God. And it was powerful for me. So when people talk about, their individual beliefs and not believing in God, like, you have to believe in something. Like, there's only, I don't know everybody listening to this podcast and what your beliefs are, but something exists. Whether or not you believe in a Christian God or another form of God, there's something out there that drives people to become and be better and teaches you when nothing else can. And that was kind of where I found myself and started picking up the pieces of all that childhood trauma, all that rejection. Just one quick, going back to like being a kid, man, like I got in trouble as a juvenile for what I felt was standing up to myself to somebody who was trying to steal from me on a school bus. Granted, I cut some kid, like, I got it, not the right answer.
Is this a separate incident?
No, this is the one that got me in trouble.
Okay. I was going to say, you and school buses are
no
not great.
Not great at all. But that's the boredom thing and all the good company. And I got in trouble. I went and did my time for that. And I started dating this girl. Her name was Naomi. And I can't remember her last name, nor would I throw it out there. She was a great young lady. But when her mom found out who I was, she basically had her daughter write me a letter, give it to my sister, because I'm expelled from school at the time, so I couldn't communicate with her on a daily basis. This is before cell phones, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
Not everybody had a
carrier pigeons.
So yeah, you make the little envelope with your little school note and you pass it off. And she handed my sister a note, and it was basically a note of rejection because her mom thought that I was going to be a nobody and that she wanted her daughter to be with somebody that was going to go somewhere in life. And even that, in that moment, when I was stripped down in front of God, even that came to my heart. It was like, just let it go, man. Like, you're holding on to all of this pain and this hurt, and the only person that it's hurting is you.
Yeah.
These people that don't even know that they hurt you this way, they don't care.
Yeah.
They don't know that they hurt you. let it go. You're killing yourself.
Yeah, I mean, maybe restating exactly what you're saying. I mean, when Christ tells us to forgive others, it's not for their sake.
Yeah.
Because most of the time they don't even know or even care. It's for you.
Yeah.
It's for
100%. It is, and coming to terms with that peace, especially after a career of doing what we have done, peace is important.
you. Yeah.
And when you let someone disturb it, I don't know about everybody, but it brings back a side of me that I'm kind of scared of. Isolationist, slightly neurotic, very cynical, and I don't like that side of myself. My wife helped me through a lot of that and taught me that there's more to life than just being angry and upset and miserable. And by God's will, I'm gonna do my best to hold on to my peace, and that's what I've struggled with. And recently, like getting back on the God thing is like I just started having this dialogue with God again after years after my wife passing, and I finally started admitting to God and myself out loud that I'm mad. I'm mad at you. You had this woman come into my life, introduce me to you, teach me all the great things of what love is supposed to look like, and then you take her from me. But just the act of admitting to God that I was mad at him started that dialogue again and allowed me to start growing closer again. So I haven't been the best Christian over the past, 3 to 5 years. And even the time that I was a Christian, I was a flawed Christian, just like everybody else. But, finally, after about 3 years of not having any communication with God, I'm starting to have communication with him again, which is, letting go of some of the things and some of the more recent hurts and troubles that I've been through and kind of working through some of that stuff. So it's just, God does it all. God taught me how to heal. God taught me how to forgive. God taught me how to let go of all of that crap that was holding me back at the end of the day when I got out of the military, and allowed me to step into who I am now, which is comprised entirely around helping people in my community. Everything I do now.
Well, let's get into that, but let's step back a little bit.
Yeah.
So, you got out of the Army. You went into contracting, which is, military adjacent.
Yeah.
Shall we call it? What got you to where you are now? Like, the injuries were piling up. You can't power lift anymore. You can't do the contracting work anymore. How did you go from that point to the woodworks?
I went to a retreat in Texas with an organization called Lone Survivor Foundation. Before they got rebranded to something else. I think they did some rebranding shortly after I went. I went there and I met some really cool veterans. And I met some not so cool veterans that were stuck in this victim mentality. And I realized that through my pain and my chronic pain, I was starting to fall into this victim mentality. Like, I'm just a broken guy. I'm not going to do anything anymore. And I came back from that trip with this understanding that I'm going to be in pain for the rest of my life because of the injuries that I sustained. How I react to that pain is on me.
Yeah.
And I started 15 minutes out of 2 hours. I'd be able to get up on my feet, go out to my shop, and start playing around with my grandfather's tools and relearning woodworking after years.
So it was not a new skill to you. This is something that you had known about, since childhood.
I've known about it, but when I was a kid, my grandfather and my father did it all their life, but I did not. I ran from woodworking for a while.
Right, but it wasn't like you just picked a hobby out of a hat.
No, the reason why I picked this hobby is because I inherited some tools from my grandfather after he passed away.
It's a good reason as any, right?
Absolutely. The first thing I built was made out of pallet wood, just like many other first-time woodworkers.
Very versatile.
Very versatile. I made a little flag table. My wife painted it, and it's still hanging on the wall in my guest bedroom, my old son's bedroom. But that was kind of the catalyst. I had a doctor tell me as I'm going through this chronic pain thing with my back, he goes, there's 2 ways that we can deal with your pain. We can give you medicine. We can give you a load of Percocets and Vicodins and gabapentin, and we can just numb the pain. Or you could do something that releases serotonin and makes you happy. right? The serotonin's a natural painkiller. Those happy chemicals that get released when you accomplish something, those are natural painkillers. So 15 minutes at a time, I'd get up and I'd go out in my shop and I'd do something. And 15 minutes turned into 30 minutes, and 30 minutes turned into an hour, and an hour turned into 2 hours. Here I was, after having debilitating back injuries and being stuck on a couch crying for half a year, finally back on my feet.
Yeah.
And woodworking was there to build me back up. It reinstituted confidence. It taught me patience, would maybe become a better father and a husband. Like, woodworking reconnected, I think, some of the things that were severed by the destruction that I had to do in the military. You go from a destructive thing that tears everything apart, is so chaotic, and then you find this cathartic release in creating something. Taking something from nothing, planks of wood like you got here at this table.
Which a dear friend crafted for us.
Yes, it is absolutely beautiful work. I made a comment on it the first time I seen it. Walnut top. You take something like a raw element and you create something and it does something for your soul.
Yeah.
I think it slowly rebuilt me from the inside, and I started realizing what it was doing for me, so I started inviting other vets in to join me.
How long into it, because you said that you were doing it in longer and longer increments, how long were you doing it before you started realizing that this really is helping my physical pain?
I don't know if I could necessarily quantify how long. I'd be guessing because I didn't keep a log, but I would say probably within 3 to 6 months I started noticing the positive impact that it was having on my normal daily activities.
Does the VA know about this serotonin?
Or is this part of the grand conspiracy as well?
I'm sure they do. I'm sure everybody knows about this idea that if you're happy with what you do, you're less likely to be focused on your pain. But we all know how lobbyists in the medical industry have completely captivated our Veterans Affairs. So their job, which I think that the VA is getting better at. They brought in this whole body healthcare thing where they're focused on mind, body, spirit. But when I got out at that time, it was literally just, we're going to throw phones.
That is a very new development.
Pills.
That is very, very recent.
So I will give the VA props. I recently went to the VA on 2 separate occasions. I got diagnosed with diverticulitis about a month and a half ago. I went in, they gave me antibiotics, treated me. A couple weeks later, I'm back in the ER. I got abscesses, so the diverticulitis developed an abscess. My care here at the Fayetteville Ramsey Street VA was absolutely amazing. Mm-hmm. My care staff, the doctors, they were patient, they explained things. So I know the VA gets a bad rap by a lot of vets out there, but I think that the VA gets a bad rap because a lot of the logistics and support roles within the VA clinic are filled with people that really don't enjoy their job and what they do there. They're doing it because it's a job. But most of the medical practitioners that I've found within the VA are pretty good.
All right. Well, we can keep going on the VA, but let's not get sidetracked here. You were
rabbits,
or I should say further sidetracked. But you were doing the woodworking for about a year, and then you started inviting other people along.
It might not even have been that long because before I even moved to my second house, as I was contracting still, a couple of my military buddies from the 82nd, yes, there are a couple of them still in the 82nd that are decent. Little jab there.
Just a couple.
Just a jab.
Like 2 tops.
He was coming by the house and he was just building stuff with me. I didn't realize the effect that it was having on him until years later, but it was a couple years later that I had a little bit more dedicated space, and a couple random people just found me from various parts of the military, and they started showing up like, hey, I want to make this thing for my guy that's getting out of the military. Can I come do it with you? I was like, hell yeah, come on. I'll teach you how to do whatever it is that you need to do, and if I don't know, we'll figure it out together. And a gentleman named Bryant, guy named Marcus, who now works with me, were 2 of the first people that came in that I didn't know before woodworking that came in and started working with me in my shop. Throughout the course of working together and hanging out, I describe it like play therapy for adults, right? So if you guys ever taking your kids to therapy. They have play therapy where they distract them with Play-Doh and coloring and paints and stuff like that. While they're talking, it drops their natural tendency for defensiveness. And it's the same thing in a wood shop. When we're there sanding and it gets monotonous and our brains now are zoned out on this task, the conversations start coming up. The deployment stories start coming up. And that brings healing because now instead of hiding it and cramming it down, they're bringing it to light and they're talking through these things. And when Marcus finished up his project, I talked to him. I said, so how did you like your experience here? He goes, man, this has done wonders for my marriage. It's done wonders for me as a father. I've been there for my kids because I look forward to coming here and spending time with you and building this thing and learning. And then I go home and I'm relaxed. And I'm not thinking about other things because I've accomplished something for this day. And it allows me to be there for my wife. And then further conversation and probing, man, this is talking about these experiences has been really helpful. I don't feel like I'm drinking as much anymore. There's another one of the guys that comes by at the time. And I had a gentleman, it's like, yeah, I'm going to another country. And it's like, okay, cool. He shows up a week later, like, hey, can I work on my box? I was like, I thought you were gone. He goes, yeah, I took some frag in the foot. I'm home for a week.
You gotta love Fayetteville.
So he took some frag in the foot. He's home for a week, decides to show up at my shop and talk to me about the incident that led up to the frag in the foot. And years later, he's going, man, you never know what those moments did for me. Like, it decompresses me.
People matter.
Yeah, and so woodworking is like what I do to connect with people, but connection is ultimately the purpose that we seek because
people matter.
You get out of the military and you feel isolated and alone. The rest of your team is going on doing their thing and you're stuck there wondering what the team's doing and all this other kind of stuff. Like, you feel alone, you feel isolated, and I've never wanted anybody else to feel like I felt. So now we're linked up with SkillBridge. People 4 months before they get out of the military can come intern at my shop. They can get plugged in with a support group, maybe find a hobby, maybe even lead into a job. But it's all around community and connection. I don't want people to feel isolated. And I lost a couple buddies to suicide, and I won't make that mistake again. I won't not be there for somebody. I can't live with that again. And I'm sure a lot of us vets out there can identify with that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I had a really good friend. I got connected with this guy through my church, and I got really close to him. And then my wife passed, and we drifted apart for a little bit. My wife passed, and he tried to show up, and I don't know. Maybe I was too closed off at the time in my own hurt, but I wasn't there for him, and he ended up leaving early, and I still carry that a little bit. Yeah. You know, like, that idea that, man, if I'd just been a little bit more open, but I was barely hanging on myself at that time. But
yeah,
do what you can, make a positive impact, and that's what I try to do with my business, with my nonprofit, and leave behind a lasting legacy that what it transcends me. You know, if I can create a program that without me continues to function after I step away, like, that's God's work.
When did you start the nonprofit?
It was officially formalized, 501c3, about 2 years ago. But we started doing the nonprofit idea and working with vets about 2016. That was when I first started opening my garage and everything to people that I didn't know. That's where it was all born. That's when my wife started seeing the positive impact, and she goes, we need to do this. We need to make it official. I found a couple advisors that kind of helped coach me through everything. We do everything with no funding, by the way. I have no money in a nonprofit. It is a by name only nonprofit. I bring people into my shop. I offset the cost of operations just because I believe in it that much. So in the future, if you guys want to support the Artisans Outreach, definitely as it grows, look for opportunities on how we make difference in our community right here.
How does Artisans Outreach work?
If you're interested in learning woodworking or creative skills, we also have a leather worker on that teaches through our program. We bring you in. We give you either discounted or free entry into our general classes. And we also open up our shop to individuals on a one-on-one basis on the weekends for people to come in and work on whatever project that they want. I got a gentleman in there right now that's doing a segmented turn to earn for his mother. I got another gentleman building a cabinet for his kitchen that he wants for his wife's baking supplies. So you come to me with your idea, we sit down, we come up with a cost estimate on materials. You don't have to buy the materials from me, but we do sell wood, we can get that stuff for you. Once the materials are purchased, you come in, you give us a couple hours on the weekend, and we basically charge you the overhead of the shop. So whatever insurance and depreciable materials are, I make no money personally off that. I don't even pay myself when I'm in there working with the vets on the weekend. It's just something that I do because helping others helps me. And that sounds selfish, right? Like I'm doing it because it's for me. And I think that's very important to identify, is that helping people connect with creativity and feel like they have somewhere to go to talk about the hard things helps me.
Yeah.
We all need to feel a little bit needed and wanted.
Well, that's why we do this show. This is for us.
It's for you guys, and at the same time, you get to share some amazing stories of people that have done some pretty cool things, and but we also, like the Artisans Outreach, we're looking at growing. We're trying to. I got a kiln and a potter's wheel and ceramic molds and stuff like that. So as we get more space, we can start branching into other creative trades like glass blowing, and that's the bigger vision of where we see this going.
Very
all in one creative center that we can package up right outside of Fort Bragg, give it back to the military for next to nothing, kind of like the Auto Skill Center was. You come in, you pay a low hourly rate to use the tools and have instructors there that enjoy teaching you what to do.
Yeah.
Like everybody that comes in, I got a couple other vets that I met through civil affairs, a couple other vets that I met through my program that come in and volunteer their time on the weekends to help other vets work on their project as well. So we go back to woodworking is the medium for the connection.
Yeah.
What we're really hoping happens is that veteran connects with somebody that's teaching them or the other vets in that atmosphere, and they have somebody that when shit gets hard, they can go, I got this guy that usually listens to me.
Yeah.
Like, let me give him a call. Let me see if he'll answer the phone.
So to call back, this is one of my hobby horse talking about. We talked about the VA, right? People will go on and on about the VA and how it didn't help. This individual slipped through the cracks. I'm talking mostly about like PTSD and associated. The VA's not going to, I got news for everybody. The VA's not going to save you. They're not. They may be able to help hold you together for a little while. They're not going to save you. It's up to veterans to look after each other. And our allies, of course, but
yeah,
and you're getting after that.
I think the other big distinction is wanting to be helped and wanting to be stepping out of that victim mentality, because we almost reward veterans for victimhood. Like, oh, you're so messed up and you're disabled. Let me give you this handout. Let me give you this thing. And some veterans, not all veterans, some veterans really latch onto that and almost use it as a way to get ahead. So I think that a lot of that is, yes, the VA is not going to save you, but you have to be willing to save yourself.
Yeah, of course.
Nobody is going to save you. You have to put in hard work. There's nothing I can do to change your depression.
Right.
But I can be there to listen. I can be there to teach you some creative hobbies. But you're going to have to fix it ultimately yourself. So that's good to identify that the VA is not going to fix it. The VA is there. They can offer means, modalities, and therapies. But ultimately, you got to do the work yourself.
Yeah. Well said.
So you've been doing Artisans Outreach for a while now.
Mm-hmm.
What is the coolest idea that somebody came in there with of something that they wanted to do? One that just kind of like caught you off guard or blew your mind, or just something you hadn't thought about before, whatever.
A knife block. I had a couple. Him and his wife had never done anything with power tools in their life. And they wanted to make this weird geometric looking knife block. And then and it was the most rewarding part was knowing that I didn't do any part of the process. Everything from the dados to the joinery to the miters was done by them. And the way that this thing assembled, because the angles and everything, it was like you almost had to assemble it from the top down and put the bottom on last. And it turned out flawless. But they brought me a little bit of a design. I go, ooh, that's going to be challenging for some first timers. Let's do it. And they did it. I got some pictures. I don't know if I'd be able to find them very quickly but trying to show them to you.
No. That's okay. I'll get it after.
Yeah, I'll see if I can find the picture of it. It was a while ago when I first moved into the building that we're in now, and it really was. It was just interesting to hear. Like, I want to make something small but really complex, and they took it on as two like complete amateurs. They worked together. Everything from deciding the wood to working on the individual equipment. You could see them connect around each other, right? So their phones are down. They're working through problems together. Easy problems.
They're communicating.
They're talking. They're disagreeing healthily. Like, I don't like that wood. Well, I like that wood. Well, can we use this wood that you like maybe in a different way where it doesn't show off as much? Yeah, I don't mind that. Let's use that over here. So it was like that compromise and communication that don't really happen very healthily within the household when everything's stressed out and the kids and the dishes and everything's piled up. It comes out as, well, why didn't you do this? And it comes out in this very frustrated, aggressive tone versus in a shop where they're both new. It was like they were breaking away all the roles that they previously had, and they were really able to just communicate about what was in front of them. And that's magical in of itself.
That's cool. So what I'm taking from that story is that any amateur who's never used a power tool before can, with little supervision, come up with something incredible.
They can come up with something incredible. Whether or not we could build it has to be
injury-free
in the realms of possibility. And if it's not possible, then I explain why it's not possible to do it that way. We offer some suggestions, kind of correct course. But I've had people as young as 5 years old in my shop. Obviously, I don't let them run the table saw. Like that's one thing.
Well, obviously.
Don't want
you gotta be 6 to ride that ride.
Even then, I don't put like a age restriction on that stuff. I tell the parents, you know your kid, you know their attention span, you know your child. If you're willing to sign that waiver for your child, I'm willing to put them on a tool. But I'm going to want to see some things out of them before I put them on that tool.
Yeah.
I think the youngest person I've had on my table saw is about 13. And that's not for any reason that I think 13-year-olds are any more capable than a 12-year-old or 11-year-old. It's just because they presented the maturity and the understanding of what the tool is capable of. And I think that's really important, a healthy respect. Kind of like when you get on a motorcycle or drive a car, you got a healthy respect for that piece of equipment.
Yeah.
But yes, anybody, if you have zero experience, you can come down to my shop and I'll walk you through how to create whatever it is that's on your mind. A bed, nightstand, table, cabinets. I only do that on the weekends. I still have a business that I got to run Monday through Friday.
Which is also impressive.
Yeah, I do some pretty cool stuff.
So before we wrap this up, one more time, because you haven't said it before, but if people want to get a hold of you, whether it's for Artisans Outreach or for a project they may have and they'd like you to talk to you about working on it or something, the woodworks, how can they get a hold of you? What's the best way to communicate?
So the easiest way is go to our website, www.ballashwoodworks.com. That's BALLASH woodworks.com, all one word. There's a contact us form. There's a project inquiry form. There's our workshops for our classes. The registration for the Artisans Outreach is on there as well. So it's a pretty busy website. If you have any trouble navigating that, there's also a contact us form where we can help guide you through anything. You can email us at info@ballashwoodworks, so that's info@ballashwoodworks, or contact our shop at 910-920-2111. Because the Artisans Outreach doesn't have much funding right now, the website for it doesn't exist. It exists as a 501c3, but it shares a website with Ballash Woodworks. So if you go up to the top header, you'll see the Artisans Outreach tab. You can click there if you are a military person, a veteran, or a family member dependent of either of those individuals. You can register for the Artisans Outreach. Sometimes we get grants from arts councils or something like that to seat military veterans for free. If that happens, or we get sponsors for workshops, we pull from that list of people registered for the Artisans Outreach. When you are registered with the Artisans Outreach, you also get a permanent 20% discount on all of the Ballash Woodworks and leatherworking classes that we have on the website. And then you're also eligible for coming into the shop and using it at the reduced rate versus this typical civilian rate. So there's a lot of different ways that we can work with you to kind of make your vision come to life. If it's something that you don't feel like you can take on after talking to me, we are a full service custom woodworking shop. We specialize in combining art with function. And it does every bit of supporting the veteran community that we can. So the Ballash Woodworks exists so that we have a place to do our work with veterans on the weekends. So when you support Ballash Woodworks, you're supporting our work that we do with the Artisans Outreach.
Perfect.
So thank you very much if you guys do decide to use our services, or even if you want to just come ask questions. I got an entire library.
That's what we did.
Yeah.
It sure is, yeah.
You
got an impressive shop down there, too.
Yeah, it's only going to get more impressive. My dad brought down all of the old antique hand planes and stuff like that and hung them up on the wall, so it's now starting to look like a museum. And probably within the next year or two, we'll be bringing down some really old machinery that used to run off of old like diesel drive shafts and shafts.
Nice.
So we got some really cool stuff coming down. And we always look to try to step outside of our comfort zone. So we don't like doing normal. We don't like doing ordinary. Everything we do, we try to put our own little twist or spin on, push our own creative skills, essentially.
Okay. So this will be the last one for me, but from Cleveland felon to
Holding up people with pocket knives.
to looking for mines with your canine, to civil affairs, to
The hoodie ordeal.
the hoodie ordeal, and then
The great incident of 2007.
the contracting work and beyond. If you could go back, would you do it all again?
100%. 100%. I think even the mistakes that I made, I would do exactly the same. I kind of alluded to it earlier. Having 13 years with my wife made every mistake that I made early in my career worth it. I got 13 wonderful years with an amazing woman, and now I got a daughter because of that lights up my world. Absolutely, I'd do it all over again.
God bless you, brother. Well, thank you so much for coming in here and talking with us.
Yeah,
man.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you for the opportunity to spread my story and talk a little bit about my business, and you guys keep doing great things.
Of course. Thank you. Well, that was a powerful episode. What do you think?
That was a pretty wild roller coaster, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Came into the Army after some youthful indiscretions.
Funny, too. He's at basic training when Iraq pops off. Yeah.
Timing. Well, I mean, he joined hoping
He did.
he would go to
He did.
Afghanistan. But his career arc is pretty wild because he came in wanting to build bridges and blow stuff up. So he became an engineer. He gets done with his engineer training and he's selected to go, restart this old Vietnam program of canine
With the dogs, yeah.
mine detection. So he's not building bridges and blowing stuff up.
Right.
While he's doing that in Afghanistan, he gets to work with some SF dudes, and it's like, this is what I want to do. I want to go be SF and be an SF medic. Goes off on that chart, or on that path, and then things don't work out, but he's still got the medical qualifications. So now he's in the medical field.
Yeah.
And he's not working with dogs, and he's not building bridges and blowing stuff up. Things don't work out with him in the medical field, and so he goes over to CA. And now he's not a medic. He's not canine. He's not building bridges and blowing stuff up. Like, it just keeps on going like that.
Yeah.
Just keeps on going like that. Just
He's several times he mentioned that yes, leadership weren't supporting him or going to bat for him or mentoring and developing him in the way they probably should have. He also mentioned several times that he took ownership for his for his mistakes.
His
And,
mouth got him in
my-
trouble
my
a couple
mouth,
times.
My mouth got I got ahead of my skis a few times, and so it's refreshing to hear somebody who has that level of self-awareness. I wonder how much of that self-awareness he had, at the time, because when you're older and more mature, it can be easier to reflect on that, right? But in the
I
moment,
don't think that he really had much at the time,
Right.
because I think if he had more self-awareness at the time, he would not have carried all that resentment. I mean, maybe some.
Yeah.
But I don't think he would have carried as much of that
Right.
resentment and anger into his post-military life, which he carried a lot.
yeah,
And it's not a military life specific thing. No matter what you do in life, even if you're your own boss, or you own your own business, you're going to have bad leadership and bad mentorship or lack of mentorship. There's going to be people in positions around you that are not great. And I don't think that obviously the Army is about to be 250 years old. Or no? More than?
I mean,
200
1775.
Yeah, so
So don't make me do math on the fly.
yeah. But anyway, he's not the first person to ever go through that roller coaster of bad situations coupled with bad leadership, bad mentorship, plus his own personal mistakes.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's a dangerous combination when you're in a rigid structure.
Yeah. I love how he spoke about the impact that his wife, his late wife, rest in peace, had on him at the time, and how she continues to this day.
Yeah. I'm sure that there are probably all sorts of metrics out there that you can measure this stuff with, but the importance of having a spouse or significant other that complements you and boosts you up is immeasurable in so many ways.
I can say that I've thank God I've never had to experience losing a spouse, but I know what it's like to be in a bad place and have an amazing wife, in my case, be there to help pull you out of it.
It takes a lot of work.
And helps, in both of our cases, Kurt and both myself, put me back on the right track spiritually. And it's kind of a weird inversion, because it's in a biblical relationship, the man is supposed to be the spiritual leader of the household, which is the case now. But that was certainly not the case when we first started dating and when we first got married. I was in a pretty rough place, and she, through her own faith and strength, kind of helped bring me along. And it sounds like that was the same case with Kurt.
Yeah, and when his late wife passed, it took him back to a bad place, and
understandable, right?
But he has since been. It takes a lot of work to climb out of that hole.
Yeah,
especially when one of your foundation or your rock is no longer there. It takes a lot of work, and I think that work that he did on himself, crawling out, is a big reason why he has the success in the woodworking, and then the purpose and the drive that he has, but for his nonprofit and helping other veterans, because his ride was wild.
Well, I've mentioned this in podcast past, and I'll bring it up again because it's really sound wisdom, and it's God doesn't waste hurts. And so if you're going to go through that, there's a reason for it. And I mean, it's up to you what you're going to make of it.
Yeah.
But it's happening for a reason, and it'll make you better.
Yeah. I also like what he said about the veterans and the victim mentality, because that is certainly true in some regards. Especially during the GWAT. Mm-hmm. I mean, you'd be hard pressed to make it out unscathed, even if you did just 3 years or 10 years or 20 years, whatever.
Yeah.
You're going to get banged up and you're going to be injured, and that's going to take a lot out of most people, but especially in the veteran community, that woe is me can really take hold. Because like he was saying, you get out, with medical discharge or, honorable, dishonorable, whatever the reason is, then not only are you feeling sorry for yourself, but now you're detached from your team, from your community, from your mission. You're isolated, and you sink even further into that depression and that victimhood.
Yeah.
It's very true.
Like our Vietnam War predecessors, it can be, and Korea, it can be that much easier to fall into that hole, or that slippery slope, when the war or the gains from the war or whatever are squandered.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, we don't get into politics here. That's not really what we're about. But it can be easy to get into that hole when you are in pain and you are spiritually, mentally, physically shattered. Oh, and by the way, everything
you gave your life to is just
tossed. Yeah. Just fell off of the landing gear of a C-130 somewhere over in CAF. So,
yeah.
I'm not condoning it. I'm saying it's easy to fall into that.
Yeah.
And so, to my point earlier, the VA is not going to save you. I mean,
No.
the VA can do some modalities to help. The VA is not going to sweep in and save you. That's why I don't really get into the VA bashing, because I don't look to the VA to save me. I've got a savior already, and the veterans and our allies need to band together, and we need to look after each other.
Yeah.
Call your buddies.
Yep.
So, really great guest.
Yep.
We reached out to Kurt over a year ago. He's local here in Fayetteville. We reached out over a year ago to him. Wanted to bring him on the show. Obviously life gets busy, and we went by and saw his wood shop. He gave us the full tour. He gave us a great tour, and it is a fantastic organization.
Yes.
Well, plural organizations that he runs there. And we highly recommend his enterprise there, and just a great American, for a Browns fan, I'm assuming. I don't know.
Well, he said in Cleveland, so the Browns would have been back in Cleveland by that point. So, yeah.
My dad was a lifelong Browns fan. He hated Art Modell when he was in Cleveland, and then when they moved the team, he was like, "That's it. I'm a Panthers fan. We lived in North Carolina." It's like, I've lived in North Carolina longer, and I lived in Ohio. So here, at this point, here we go. And that was a mistake too, being a Panthers fan. So,
well,
you know the pain,
ups and downs. But at least the Panthers
mostly down.
But at least the Panthers have been to at least 2 Super Bowls in
fair.
the last, since they became an organization 30 years ago.
Fair.
So
okay. Anything else on Mr. Ballash before we proceed?
I don't think so. If you are interested in whether having some work done by Ballash Woodworks, or you're interested in the Artisans Outreach, we'll go ahead and put.
We'll link to it.
Yeah, we'll put the link to it in the description.
Yeah,
but,
we'll put the website in the description. He's easy to find on social media.
Yeah. Or you can just rewind the episode to where he literally spelled some of it out for you.
To include the phone number. So,
yes. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay.
Awesome. So, Free Fire. I'm probably going to butcher the pronunciation, but Ignacio Anaya.
Why am I already laughing?
Is the inventor of the delicious dish known as nachos. Worked in a Mexican guy, worked in a restaurant right across the Texas border in Mexico, And after Nachos took off, he was rapidly promoted through the restaurant ranks, and he eventually opened his own place. But nachos are named after him. If you had a food that could be named after you, first name or last name, what would that food be?
And we have to keep this PG-13, right?
Yes?
Question mark?
I'm starting to wonder what you're thinking
where
about.
are we going with this? Okay. All right.
Like if you want a banana to be known as a Roger from now on, then that's what it'll be.
No comment.
Or if you want, beef Wellington to be known as Beef Roger. Yeah.
That does sound good.
Yeah.
What about drinks? Does it have to be food?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to stick with food.
Food. Okay. The beef Wellington. I mean, he beat Napoleon, so we'll let him keep that one. Okay. All right. All right. You win this one, Lord Wellington. All right. So my last name is German. It means bird. But I don't want a poultry dish named after me. That just doesn't seem right.
Okay.
So, but logically it flows. Like, oh, what do you got?
Chicken Parmesan is now called Chicken Vogel.
What do you?
It's like bird.
What do you got on the smoker over there? I got a Vogel over there. You know what? We're gonna go with that just because. So I want to be renamed. Chicken shall now be the Vogel. So does that have to be a specific dish or just in general?
Whether it's chicken or a chicken dish, I mean, whatever.
I mean, because
a fruit, a nut.
At least in the United States, anyway. I don't know, but chicken is a extremely, just volume wise. I don't know. I imagine it's probably the most eaten up meat in the United States. I don't know if that's true, but I imagine it probably is.
Yeah.
Nationally. There's going to be regional variants, of course, but I think nationally that's probably true. So from here on out,
all chicken will be known as Vogel.
Yeah. So when you go to the store to get Tyson's,
it's going to be Tyson Vogel.
It's going to be Tyson Vogel.
Okay.
I'm opening myself up by renaming myself, chicken. But
I mean that's fine.
Give me your hate. Give me.
That's fine.
All right.
I also am not going to go in a dish direction, although it can be eaten standalone. There are few things that make 99% of all food better. Bacon is one of those few things. Bacon will now be known as Baker.
That's very clever. You had more time to think of that than I did.
I thought about it when we were saying goodbye to Kurt.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
That, and I read about Nacho and Alia recently.
That's funny because that's one of those things you assume, like, oh, this must be this traditional, like really old, old family recipe. It's like, no, it was thought up in the 60s,
It's older than that, but
okay, fair enough.
But I actually had to look it up to find out like what his real name was.
Not Nacho.
I was like, Nacho can't be his real name. But yes, all
Nacho,
bacon.
Nacho real name.
All bacon would henceforth be known as Baker, because bacon makes everything better. I mean, you could put bacon on ice cream and make it better.
It's true. It's hard to top that.
Yeah, you could put bacon in cotton candy, which cotton candy is.
It's not neither cotton nor candy.
No, it's gross.
Yeah. Okay.
But bacon would make it better.
Yeah. We both went for protein. Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. Okay. Well, thank you for joining us today.
Yes.
Go ahead.
We hope you enjoyed our conversation with Kurt Ballash. Hope you go check out. I mean, even if you're just interested in woodworking and you want to kind of see the cool stuff that he and people in his shop have come up with, go check out the website, look around.
We invite you to give us a follow on all the social media, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, X.
Yeah. YouTube, Rumble. You can obviously get the audio version of this podcast and pass it on to other people who may find these stories of veterans interesting.
Yep. Please like, share, subscribe, leave us a good review.
Yeah.
We actually need these things. We say it after most episodes, probably not as often as we should.
Yeah. Go check out the website. The website has tracerburnout.com, and it has all the links and stuff there, and a little bit more information about us. And I was actually thinking about this. We should actually put together like a photo gallery on the website.
Yeah, that's easy. We could do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And by we, I mean you.
I know. I knew that's what you meant.
I'm saying that the website now falls under social media.
Okay.
Therefore, your domain.
So it was written, so it shall be done. Thanks, everybody. And remember, your service matters.
Cheers.
We'll give you a cheers here.
I'll give you one.
Oh, let's do cheers. Let's just do the cheers, get it out the way.
Prost.
They said he had to look professional, so we're hiding our bourbon and coffee.
I'm going to edit that.